so my mise en place has improved. And for the first time in a long while, I have both blackberries and mint in my kitchen at the same time, which never happens. And I would do a blackberry smash, but I have no bourbon. So this is my take on a blackberry fizz. I say my take because we work with what we've got. These blackberries are massive. If you don't have a muddler, a spoon is fine, but it's so satisfying. It's like the miniature version of stomping grapes. That may be too much. Yes, it's in a repurposed rosé bottle, but this is actually homemade limoncello. Let me know if y'all want a video on me making limoncello, because I do it often. 1 ounce limoncello. And this is Penn Square Hibiscus Vodka by Thistlefinch. And I'm not typically a vodka person, but I will hype up every Pennsylvania distillery there is. You can take the girl out of Philly. 1 ounce hibiscus vodka. We add some ice. Oh, you are purple. I do love purple things. Have we determined if smashing the mint does anything significant? Oh well. Top with club soda and give it a little stir. I bet half as many blackberries would have done fine. Oh, lovely and refreshing. Cheers. I'm gonna make you again. Let's talk about how I rate books. This is gonna go by the 5-star system. I will try to pepper in some 1/2 and 1/4 stars in there. Shout out to Storygraph for offering that as an option. Speaking of which, I almost exclusively use Storygraph. I'm really not on Goodreads at all anymore, and I was really never that consistent with it to begin with. But the 5-star rating system absolutely has its value, and each rating can mean different things to different people, so this is just how I think of it. Starting at the top, 5 stars is rare. I will only ever give a 5-star rating to a book that I felt was perfect. I have no notes, I have no critique, the author did everything right. I do not give out 5 stars frequently. And on the rare occasion I do, those ratings will typically soften over time. I'm the sort of reader who will get very excited as I read it, but I'm also a person who takes time to process. So if I decide a few days or weeks later, oh, you know what, they could have done this better, it'll get knocked down just a little bit as the broader implications of my critique sort of crystallize. There are also 5-star books that I've returned to later and said to myself, ooh, wow, I don't know why I rated that 5 stars. So I also acknowledge that a book can have a stronger impact at different times. There are books I have despised my first time reading them and then come back to later and said, oh, actually, I like this better now. Similarly, there are books that I will love my first time reading them that won't necessarily hit the same the second time around. A much more common rating for me to give out is 4-star reads. 4 stars for me usually means I love it and I will recommend it. There are usually a couple of things here and there that I wasn't crazy about, but generally speaking, I enjoyed reading it. Most of the books I mentioned in an earlier happy hour video where I was talking about some of my favorite titles, pretty much all of those are 4-star reads for me. I've gone back and reread them later, I've loaned them out to friends, and they hit the major points that I was looking for in that story. Now, 3-star reads are the most common for me. This is, I read it once, I probably won't go back to it. Or it's, yeah, I liked it, but I didn't think it was anything amazing. Many of my Storygraph reviews will fall in the 3.25, 3.5, which is just like a teeny extra credit point. But for me, 3-star reads will typically get gifted to someone who I think will enjoy it more, or they'll go to my Pango storefront or my local secondhand bookshop. 3 stars is where I generally also put the I expected more out of this. I try not to pay too much attention to a lot of the hype before a book's release, but if I personally get very excited by the premise of a book and it just falls a little bit short, 3.5 is where that tends to fall for me. 2 stars is I wanted to know what happened enough for me to finish reading it, but I don't think it's particularly good. If you couldn't tell, I've had a couple of those recently. 2 stars might also be it scratches an itch, but it doesn't do anything particularly profound. Now, if I know that going into reading the book, and it's a little bit of a junk food craving moment, if that's the case, then I won't give a public rating, because I knew what I was getting into. If I post a 2-star rating, that means I had much higher expectations for the book overall, and it fell very short for me. I don't give out 1 stars. I don't think I've ever posted a 1-star rating in my life. I find a lot of the 1-star ratings extremely funny, but I just choose not to, and that's for 2 reasons. With the vast majority of my 1-star reads, I don't finish. And if I DNF a book, I personally don't feel right leaving a review for it. Whether I got through the first 50 pages or the first 100, and it feels like a 1-star read that I just don't have any interest in continuing, then posting a rating doesn't really feel justified to me. It's not even a matter of trying to protect the author's feelings, because to my mind, reviews, generally speaking, are for other readers. But if I don't finish a book, I don't usually feel I have the authority to say why I think it was bad. The second circumstance of a 1-star review is I forced myself to finish it so that I could talk badly about it. Now, this is rare, but it has happened. And in both cases, it's not because things didn't land or there are ways certain things could have been done better. 1-star books for me are major plot holes, glaring inconsistencies, bad writing. Don't come for my neck when I say this, but James Patterson is a 1-star author for me. It's so repetitive. I'll recap with a few examples. As you might expect, the 1- and 2-star reads are not on my bookshelf, but Babel by R.F. Kuang is a perfect example of a book that started out as a 5-star read as soon as I finished it, but slid to like 4.5 upon reflection. I still love it. I'm going to reread it. But again, I'm a person who needs to process. And there are some moments where things are telegraphed that I don't need to have explained to me. And some of the commentary can come across a little heavy-handed at times, but I still really enjoy it, and this is one that I recommend. Trouble of the Saints by Elia Dawn Johnson, 4 stars. Very noir, very atmospheric, has some magic, all things I love. And I have a couple of critiques, but generally this is something that I really enjoy reading. And Phantasma by Kaylee Smith hovers right in the 2 to 3 star range. I liked it fine when I was reading it. It didn't blow me away, but I kind of also wasn't expecting it to. It scratched the itch. It did the things. Again, liked it fine as I was reading it, probably won't reread it. That's another point worth mentioning. If I find the story predictable, automatically loses half a star, even if I love the writing style and the characters. Hopefully that's helpful. But it's also worth noting that all of these are subjective. Some books find me at just the right time, and others really don't, and they will get higher or lower ratings from me accordingly. Cloak of the Vampire, that was a 1-star read from me. I got it as an ARC, I felt compelled to finish it, but I really hated it. Not that my TBR needs to be any longer, but if you have any 5-star reads that you've changed your opinion on, or have adjusted your rating after a reread, comment below, though I acknowledge that might not be everybody's experience.